What's up, Rangers Nation? It's Alex Flink with Dallas Sports Fanatic, and this is the Texas Rangers Fanatic Podcast, episode 11, episode 1-1. We're in double digits now. And I am joined with a voice you are very familiar with, you better be familiar with, and that is Mr. Dave Raymond, the Texas Rangers play-by-play announcer. Dave, thank you so much for joining.
Thanks for having me, Alex. 11, that's kind of a fun number. It's the number of, secret ingredients in the Colonel's chicken. And there's a little science behind the number 11 being a good marketing number for people, because it's not quite 10. It conveys this sort of outer reach that is elusive to people. It's an interesting number. I like number 11.
Now, when you say the Colonel's fried chicken, do you mean like the original fried chicken, or do you mean
the original recipe?
So-called? Yeah. Okay, so the very, very greasy kind.
Yes.
Not the extra crispy where it's semi-greasy.
Right. Exactly. I mean,
okay.
I'm going back to like the 80s with that.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so it's been greasy. I don't know if greasy is the right word to describe this season, but it certainly has been very. Not the most clean seasons for the Texas Rangers. I was trying to get an analogy that wouldn't get me in trouble or have people get disgusted, but
it's a good segue.
There we go.
It's been messy.
There you go. I mean, that's actually maybe a good way to describe it. It's been unclean, messy.
Yeah. And I don't know, to be honest with you, I was thinking about this the other day. Like, where would you have your greatest disappointment in this season? Is it the offense? Probably, right? I mean, it probably has to be the way this team has hit the ball. Defensively, I don't know that you could have had expectations that the assumed lineup was going to be really good, because you had so many guys more or less out of position or without positions. So I felt like that was actually going to be an issue no matter what this year for this team. But I thought they would hit. I mean, that's the point of having guys out of position, is that at least you're getting their bats in there. And I think it's been stunning, amazing. And it gets, again, almost kind of like the mysterious number 11. I think that this lineup and the way it's produced and the challenges that it continues to face and maybe even create for itself are almost a little mysterious. And it's getting to the point where it's beyond just simply bat to ball. I think there's a pretty good psychological element to it at this point. So there's a lot of disappointment, a lot of messiness there. The pitching, when Leclerc and Kluber go down, man, you know that you're dealing with some tough stuff. Minor didn't have his best start, and now he's no longer a Ranger. So that was definitely a little bit disappointing, but I wouldn't say monumentally so. I thought the pitching, even to this point, has been okay. There have been some times where they've bent, maybe even broken briefly in the middle of a game, but for the most part, they've stood their ground pretty well. They just cannot score.
It's crazy. So there's a couple of things I found on here, and you can even go deeper to this. So the team has a minus 65 run differential. That's second worst in baseball next to the Red Sox, who have a minus 66. They have scored 134 runs in 37 games. To kind of break that into perspective, the Cardinals, who have played 8 fewer games, have scored 127 runs.
Yeah.
And the Marlins, who are supposedly an offensive – they've been viewed, especially during the trade deadline, as a team that really needs offense. They've scored 136 runs in 33 games.
Yeah.
It's
unusual. It's unusual, and especially when you have the mix of veteran hitters and some good up-and-coming young hitters. But again, injuries have been part of the story. Willie Calhoun just really never got consistent time. Gallo had the positive COVID test, then hurt the wrist. Once he got going, hurts the wrist, and really hasn't recovered well since then. So those are two pretty big bats too. Chu just has had an off year. Andrews is getting a little bit older, and Odor did what he's done now, it seems like, every year in recent years, which is look great in spring or summer camp, but then just cannot get it done during the regular season. So To your point about the numbers, last night it was late. It was after the Friday night game against the Seattle Mariners. Came home, it was late, and a lot of times our producer on the TV side will text with some ideas, questions. We'll go back and forth even into the wee hours of the morning, and then we revisit it again the next day. But he pointed out that we have not had a 10-run game this year. The Rangers haven't had a game where they've scored double-digit runs. It's August, 6th, 5th. So that's kind of amazing. You would figure somewhere along the line, somebody would trip and fall on the other team, right? You just have a bullpen day or whatever. And guys would run into a bunch of hits and runs, but it just hasn't happened this year. That goes, again, back to what we were saying earlier. There's just something borderline mysterious about their inept bats this season.
I think with the way this year has gone, also today's September 5th. So
perfect. Thank you. There you go.
But no, this is the kind of year it's been. But to that point too, and something that I kind of brought up after the game yesterday, 24 losses on the season, 18 of those have been by 4 runs or less.
Yeah.
But they haven't had a victory of 4 runs or more than 4 runs. So that's where the run differential of -65 comes from, because they've had some 8-9 run losses that doesn't really have a victory to offset that. So I ask you how, and I kind of asked this for Woody yesterday. I'm not going to go over what he said because we got about, that's going to be about 20, 30 minutes. Yeah. But basically, how do you assess this season? Do you look at that? Do you look at the fact that 75% of your losses have been essentially attainable? Now, yesterday is a little bit because they scored a couple in the ninth. Felt like Seattle pretty much had that game in hand all day. Though they did bring the tying run to the plate. There's had a couple of those. One of those 4-run loss to a walk-off grand slam. So you'll have some of those here and there. But when you assess this team, do you look at that and say, they're 11 games under 500. They have a .351 winning percentage, which is 3rd worst in baseball behind Boston and Pittsburgh. But do you use that? Do you say, but 75% of their losses are very attainable? And do you look at that and say, or do they just not add up?
No, I do, right? Personally, I've always done that. And it's probably, a symptom of my job, because I want the games to be interesting. I want them to be competitive. So like last night, I even joked as we were going to the 9th inning that, who knows, maybe this is the night that, and I've said this more than once this year, maybe this is the night where they had that miraculous comeback, right? And fashion a rally. Well, they got a walk. And I talked about how we got a rally going. And sure enough, they end up getting the tying run to the plate. Well, to me, that's meaningful. In the old days, like last year, it would be meaningful to get that extra arm up that the Mariners had to get up last night in the 9th inning. That's meaningful in a 3-game series and 162-game schedule, because every little bit that you tick off the other team has an effect. And that's what's so fun about a 162-game schedule. Yes, it's a loss, but there were some wins in there. Now, in a 60-game schedule, and when you're in a position where the Rangers are right now, really that victory is a pretty empty victory last night. But I do think there's something to it. I think there's something to competing to the very end, even when you don't feel like you're in it. And a game like last night, and there were several in Houston, where you never felt like they were in the game. You never felt like they were really threatening, or that Houston was reeling or back on their heels or concerned. But they kept making it close. And that's all great. And I definitely cling to that night after night, because I have to, right? I want to keep it interesting for myself. I want to keep it interesting for the viewer. But the problem I'm having lately is we do this every night.
It's too repetitive. And
they're not getting over the hump.
Right, exactly. And I feel like, especially on the offensive side, you hear this Luis Ortiz, Nick Solak, Chris Woodward, feel like we're there. We're almost there. We're close. But this has been the same thing that has been said for the last month. I mean, the span that they're in is still 37 games. that's in a 162 game season. Yeah, that's not as much, but that's still quite a bit, where a slump like that is not going to hurt you as much, but it's still going to leave a small dent.
Yeah.
But again, it's too repetitive.
Yeah, but even in this 37 game stretch, really, it's been the latter half of that where we've seen this night in, night out. The first half of that, like what were they? Were they 10-9, right?
Yeah.
When they got there, so 19 games in, they're a game over 500, and there's no doubt that there were a handful of games in there that they could have also won, right? So you can play that game with yourself, like, geez, if we just played better defense, maybe we would have been 12-7. Boy, that's a big difference. All right, now we turn that corner with that final game in Colorado. That's where things tipped the wrong direction. Interestingly, in that final game in Colorado, kind of a blowout most of the day, but the Rangers loaded the bases in the ninth inning, at the tying run of the plate in the ninth inning,
If Scott Heineman just barely ticked it and it didn't hit Estevez, who knows? We could be talking about a different season.
Well, exactly. And the thing about that is, right, is like that moment is sort of the moment that we've repeated over and over and over again since then. Why? I don't know. Will they flip that switch and figure out how to win those games? That's a big part of being a good team. That's a big part of why guys like Todd Frazier are important. Guys who have, been around a little bit and won those games. Just several years ago, the Rangers were outstanding at winning one-run games.
Yes.
And coming back with walk-off wins. We haven't had a walk-off this year. There's been no walk-off victories for this team. No win in that final at-bat for this team. That's weird. I mean, statistically, that's weird. Bad teams have those wins. But again, maybe a little bit the function of the way this season is put together. I think there is something, right? I think there's a psychological something in there that is prohibiting them from getting over that hump. And I don't know what, I don't know why. That is the magic question that they're all trying to answer. It's interesting to watch. Disappointing though, right? You just a couple times just want to be rewarded for hanging in there and see something go their way. If the law of probability is anything, if it really is a law, for crying out loud, then they're due for some really exciting finishes here in these remaining 20 some odd games.
I do think, and Chris Woodward brought this up as far as mentally exhausting, that he wants his team to be mentally exhausting. But again, if they struggled at home this year, I could maybe understand. New ballpark, no fans. It kind of mentally gets onto you. But
Right.
They've been okay at home. It's on the road. I think they only have like 4 wins away from Globe Life Field. And it's not like these are new ballparks they've never been to.
No.
Seattle's a place that they've raked in the past. And this year they just cannot solve the Mariners pitching staff at T-Mobile Park.
Right. And it is terribly disappointing. And it goes, I'm with you. I think a lot of people would say like, well, a new home ballpark and it's big, right? It's played big and we can feel the effect in the game. And maybe that's had some sort of mental toll on this team. But the fact of the matter is, fewest road wins in baseball with 4, lowest winning percentage on the road in baseball this year. It just doesn't add up. So what it means is this team hasn't played well at home and they've played even worse on the road. And there's no explanation. There are no excuses, no explanation, except to say that, look, every year teams are good and teams are bad. And, the best teams, the most incredible teams lose 60 games or right around 60 games. The most putrid assortment of characters you could ever put out on a field are going to win 50 to 60 games in a year. So baseball's goofy. And in a short little time span like this, we've just cornered the market on goofy, I'm afraid. This is so far anyway, through 37 games. I just don't know how else to explain it. Look, the numbers are what they are. They haven't hit. They haven't played good defense. They haven't done a lot of things well. But they've lost more than their fair share.
So when you look at player evaluation, how much of this season do you really take into that? for instance, a guy like Shin-Soo Choo or Joey Gallo or guys like that who have previous year pedigrees, and now you're seeing them struggle. You know, I know Chu and Gallo are completely different categories based on their careers, but do you take it at 100% evaluation as any other 162 game year? Or do you kind of say it maybe in like a size saying, well, it was a shortened season, because baseball players are a creature of habit. So like Mike Minor's a perfect example. Last year, dominant for most, had, you know, rough July and okay September. And then this year completely struggled. He says the shortened season didn't really mean as much as far as the reason he was struggling, though, you know, Mike Minor is not going to just flat out and say, yes, this is the reason why I'm doing terribly. So do you take that into consideration when you're looking at next year? Or do you say, no, you guys came out to play 60 games. This is how it is. And we'll use that as evaluation for next year.
Well, I'll say this much, Alex. I take solace in the fact that my evaluation of the players is meaningless. You know what I mean? I wouldn't want to have that job. I think it's tough. But I do, to answer your question, I think that general managers are in a position where they have to be, I guess, more creative than that. And you can't look at it in the same way you've looked at any other year. And we always say that spring training is a bad time to evaluate players. And that September, in past configurations with the expanded rosters, it's a terrible time to really evaluate players. Doesn't mean you can't see something and learn something, but it's not a good time to really make your determination on a player. Similarly, I'd say this year is in that vein. There's stuff we can take, there's no doubt. We've learned about individuals, and managers and general managers will learn about makeup on guys. I think there's some real stuff to be learned there. But you can't look at it like a 162 game schedule, because beyond the fact that it's a short season, and then just kind of the weird strategies and stresses that come along with trying to play that competitively, you could take that element and set that over here. There's a lot that goes into that. But all around that is the pandemic, the weird travel, all the new rules, regulations, laws, personal contact. We've heard guys talking about even just so much as a pat on the back or a post-game beer with somebody, just to talk. And I bet you this much too. I bet you some of those players in the clubhouse miss, this is going to sound crazy, miss having losers like us hanging around their lockers just to shoot the breeze or have somebody to talk to or whatever, to make fun of later behind their backs. Who knows? But I think even that is missed this year. There's too much going on, man. None of us probably are our best selves in 2020. And so you have to be compassionate, I think, about that. And you have to be considerate when you look at these guys in that vein. At the same time, there are guys who are doing well. And, you know, it can be done. So again, maybe it goes to like, well, what are the personal lives like? Maybe we need to look at what correlations we can draw between performance and certain stages of life where guys are with family or whatnot. Who knows? But no, I don't think you can say definitively that Carlos Correa is an average shortstop because he just hasn't hit the ball well this year. Or that George Springer is beyond his prime now and is on a rapid decline in his career in Houston, because I don't believe it. I mean, it's not been a good year for him. Jose Altuve's had a horrible year. I don't believe he's a bad player. You know, and you look at the Rangers, whether it's Gallo, you know, Minor start this year, Oakland's taking a flyer on that. I don't blame them. I would too. You know, I think there are guys who are going to be better next year. Now, exactly how much and how will they respond? I think it's going to be it's going to be colored just as much as this year has been by how weird the offseason is, again, with regard to the coronavirus and everything else swirling around us.
I think it's interesting and like with the trade deadline came up, I was a little shocked that Lance Lynn didn't go. I felt like with the whole Joey Gallo situation, I think the outside world, here's my evaluation on that. I feel like, when you go to like a flea market and you have maybe something valuable that you have and you're like, you know what, I'm just going to throw it out there, see if somebody will take it and see if I could get a good price for it. With Joey Gallo, they probably didn't get, I think, like, I heard what the Braves were asking. They were, or not what the Braves were asking, but what the Braves said the Rangers were asking. They were asking for a lot. And so I think that's what the whole situation on there was, because Joey Gallo is very affordable. And for like a team like Tampa Bay, that would have been made sense. But again, how much are the Rangers asking? So I think they just kind of let it out, see what they could get. But again, this year for like Lance Lynn, it's the same situation with Mike Minor. And I hear like what John Daniels is saying is we didn't like what we were going to get.
Yeah.
So I think there's a lot of talk of, do the Rangers overvalue their players? And, it's good to overvalue, but there comes at a point where if you overvalue too much, you're going to lose out on some great returns. Who knows? Maybe what they got from Mike Minor, those are going to turn out to be two studs from Oakland. You don't know. I feel like saying that the Rangers trade deadline was a failure is a little too hasty, because you don't know what you're going to get back. And who knows? Maybe what they got back from Lance Lynn, from whoever, would have been busts. And so it would look like a waste. Maybe they get something great in the winter. But that's where I feel like when you say, even the San Diego Padres, that they dominated the trade deadline. Sure, but who knows when Cleveland gets back and the players they got back could turn out to be major league stars, and Mike Clevenger could be a bust in the postseason. Not saying you have no evidence to back that up, but.
Well, I mean, I think when people say that about the Padres, probably they're it's in terms of they've dominated in the short term, right? I mean, they've made the strongest push to make themselves competitive or better for the postseason this year. I think you can make that argument. What they had to give up, we'll find out over time what kind of value that is. I mean, when people cite these things all the time, it's a fun game you can play. But when the Rangers went and got Cole Hamels, and you look at what they gave up, people are like, geez, that's a pretty hefty price they just paid. Well, okay, it was at the time. They swallowed hard, as John Daniels likes to say. But what happened? What do those guys turn into? Like, where's all that value that the Rangers gave up to get Cole Hamels? It's not like they lost a lot. So you don't know. I mean, Jurickson Profar was the #1 prospect in baseball for what, like 3 years running?
Yeah.
You're talking about a can't miss guy, but it hasn't panned out. So, when people do ratings, when people talk about winners and losers in personnel changes, it's just, you can't know. We don't have the luxury of seeing the future on that stuff. So you can't know. All I will say is, you look at a team like the Tampa Bay Rays, and they continually churn out talent at the major league level that fits beautifully with the other pieces they have at the major league level. And most of the guys are not dudes, as we call them in the industry, right? They're not super high profile guys, but they're guys who have a skill set or some ability that they feel like they can tweak in a way to make it fit well with everybody else and be very competitive. They've got some secret sauce there. And, I think the rest of us are all trying to figure out what that is, honestly. And until that secret gets out, they're going to continue to have probably a pretty good advantage in evaluating and attaining the right talent. The rest of us, rest of Major League Baseball, you have some teams that maybe are more advanced than the others, but it's all about figuring out who can give you what and then assigning a value to that. And the Rangers felt like they had more value in Lynn than they could get back in return.
I think the scary part with Joey Gallo is I feel like when a team is interested in him, they feel like there's some tweaks that they can make to make him reach his full potential. And that's the scary part, because I think a perfect example is when the Blue Jays acquired Robbie Ray. I think I heard somewhere where the Blue Jays are like, yeah, we can fix him. We can fix because of the walk issue. Now, in a month's span can you really fix the issue with Robbie Ray. I highly doubt it. But you saw that with Cole Hamels when he went to the Cubs. Immediate success. They found something to kind of tweak. I believe that's what they saw something that they kind of adjusted, and he was dominant. And so that's the scary part when you look at this Rangers organization. They've been trying for years to get Gallo working. Now they've helped out as far as his vision at the plate, his aggressiveness at the plate. That's dimmed down, and that's made him successful. But the swing, and that's where I think maybe Globe Life Field is not the place for Joey Gallo. I feel like it's turning into a gap ballpark instead of I think that's going to go and determine their decision to extend Joey Gallo's time here, because I think that if it was in the old Globe Life Park, he would be raking, and there would be no doubt in my mind. Extend him. Why are you waiting? Here, I think this isn't quite the place for him, to be honest, in my opinion, unless there's a small tweak. It's a guy like Nick Solak who hits gaps to all fields. That's a perfect hitter. Isaiah Connor-Falefa, same thing. But Joey Gallo, I don't know.
Well, and we're going to find out, right, in fairly short order. I don't know if it's a year, 2 years, whatever. They're going to have to make a decision on that. And I think that is going to have to be a part of the decision and a factor in the decision. So, do they tweak the dimensions at the ballpark? Are we going to, by the way, down this stretch here, we're going to get some pretty favorable weather, it looks like, coming up. Are we going to play with that roof open a little?
Roof.
And how will it play? And can we get a read on that? So there's still more to learn. I don't think anybody wants to give up there. And I get what you're saying, right? You get fearful, and this is I think a challenge for people making decisions. You get worried. Okay, this team's after Joey Gallo. We know what's inside Joey Gallo. Everybody knows that there's a pretty exciting power bat just sitting there waiting to be exploited. Now, if somebody feels like they can get more out of him, well, that's great, but that's really not your concern. Your concern is, can I get more out of him? What can we get out of him? Have we figured it out? Have we run out of, is the relationship in such a place where we've tried 3, 4, 5 things? He's done trying stuff with us. He needs to go somewhere else and try their thing. I don't know. But those are the types of things that you do have to figure out. But if you can't, you have to realize whether or not you can get any more out of him. And if you cannot, if you don't have confidence that you can, then maybe there is more value in moving him somewhere else. That's a tough decision to make, and you have to accept the fact that if you do that and he does go somewhere else and they make the right moves and he has success, you have to be happy for him, and you got to focus on what you got and what you have with your team and make that better. And I applaud general managers. I talked to JD about this. I've talked to all general managers about this over the years. For the life of me, I don't know how they do it, because I would keep myself up at night all night wondering, like, why is this team so hot and heavy after my guy? What do they know that I don't know?
Exactly.
And I'd be so paranoid about it. I'd be like, nope, no, I'm not doing it. But these guys are pros. They make decisions in, I'd say, like, much better frames of mind than you and I and fans would. And sometimes they win, sometimes they lose. You just want to win more than you lose. But it's gutsy, high stakes stuff that I just, I don't have the stomach for it. I couldn't do it.
Nomar Mazara is, I feel like, a perfect example. I think when you look at left-handed outfielders, I think that was one of the reasons why he was the one that got traded out. I think they tried everything they could, and they said, okay, let's make a deal with the Chicago White Sox.
Yeah. I mean, and I think it was fine, right? Once you've seen a guy for 3, 4, 5 years and you see the consistency or something more than fans see, right? How that relationship works. You may have come to a decision like, this person's closed me out, right? They're done taking my instruction and suggestions. And when that happens in life, how you have to deal with that with somebody. It's like, okay, I probably need to stop giving them advice. All right, well, if it's a ball player, it might be like, I might need to let him go somewhere else and figure it out, right? But, those are tricky things. And I think with Nomar, we saw it year in, year out. And that guy's got a great swing. He's got power. He's got a good arm. Now, doesn't cover much ground. Wasn't great defensively. There were limitations on the offensive side. And so maybe you're at a point where like, I can get some value here. We're just not seeing the growth that we wanted to see.
Exactly.
Maybe he is what we're seeing. Let's get the value. I'm okay with that, right?
Yeah.
It's just, but again, you've got to have some guts to make those moves.
How is this season been as far as on the broadcasting side goes? How weird is it? Because they're in Seattle. You should be in your hotel room in Seattle getting ready for the Rangers-Mariners tonight, and yet you're broadcasting road games from Globe Life Field.
Yeah, it's very weird. And as well as anybody, Alex, a great part of what we do is we get down to the ballpark hours before the ball game. We chat with each other, but we go to the clubhouse and we chat with ball players. We sit in the manager's office and discuss baseball with him. And those conversations are a little more free-flowing. They're a little more natural and organic and comfortable when you're person to person. We've done our best with the Zooms. And it's fine. It's better than nothing for sure.
Yeah.
But we're given a player every day. And that's it. I can't just sidle over real quick to Willie Calhoun's locker and ask him the question I did to ask him. I can't sneak over.
You have to wait weeks, maybe even a month.
Yeah. It's weird. And it's definitely odd. Being at home when the team's on the road and doing the games. Mechanically, there are things that are certainly challenging in that. But I just missed that time. When I started pursuing this as a younger person, I love baseball, but I really, I wasn't good enough to play at that level. But I had so much admiration for them, and I idolized players, and I was so fascinated with the game that I saw this as a way to be close to the game.
Yes.
And to maybe even know more about the game than I could have ever imagined, and the people and all these different things. And I love the conversations. I like the scouts. I like the managers, the coaches. I like bumping into old guys and talking about games they played 20, 30 years ago. That's the stuff that I live for. And we get almost none of that this year. And it's been hard, right? It's what I miss. So we're doing the games, and that's great. We're still connecting with the fans, which is fun. But man, I miss the access to the guys. I miss the behind the scenes stuff. I miss being on the road on occasion. Just those rhythms of the baseball season have been so much a part of my life and my family's life. They're tired of me being here every day. So they're used to me being gone a little bit and being happy to see me come home, but then excited to see me go. All that stuff's been very, very weird. But it's also it's hard to treat the broadcast and make it feel like
normal when it's not.
When there's no one there.
Yeah.
Or you're not even there. You might be thousands of miles away. It's very difficult. It's very different.
I think it's just like you said, the one-on-one conversations you have with players. You talk so much baseball with them, and I remember even asking Joey Gallo when I took a vacation trip to Las Vegas. I asked him, "Hey, what's stuff around that's outside the Strip? What is there? What would you recommend in Las Vegas?" And so surprisingly, I forgot what he said right now, but just like stuff like that, just having just kind of even not just baseball, but non-baseball discussions. And, just having, I had a couple of discussions with Delano DeShields. Sean Kelly was fun to talk to. Just like stuff like that you miss. And, you feel like it's so much more roboticized now, and that it doesn't feel, I don't want to say it doesn't feel authentic, but it feels like you're trying to get back to normalcy, but it's not normal.
Yeah. It feels almost like a Stratomatic game. And I'm sure to them, going back to what we were talking about earlier, I'm sure it's weird for them too, right? Because that, certain cities in particular, right? There's a vibe around the ballpark that you just feel. There's an energy. It's the talk radio. It's the people on the street. It's the cabbies, people in the restaurants, and in the hotel lobbies. You feel and hear like this excitement about the game, and it's gone. And so it's just weird, you feel the fans want, you feel the passion of a fan base and the disappointment at times. But it wouldn't surprise me if for some of the players, it just doesn't feel real. It's like, well, there are no consequences. I struck out, I did this, whatever. Those cardboard faces, those expressions never changed. The weird sounds that came out of the sound system didn't really feel like real noise to me.
Sound like you're on an airplane.
Yeah, I mean, it's just, it doesn't seem real at times, I'm sure, for some.
You're not sitting next to CJ.
Not sitting next to CJ, so it's like, that's again, I think it's understandable if certain guys, personalities, mindsets, whatever, just haven't thrived in this environment. I would say like, yeah, well, I can understand that, right? I can definitely appreciate how it would feel weird for them, because it feels weird for me.
The thing this year, I would say if I had to pick out one thing this year, it is the apple pie cheese debates. I'm still blown over from that.
So have you ever tried it?
I have not.
Well, do it. Get real cheddar cheese though, right? Get real cheddar cheese.
Because I don't care for apple pies.
Well, then you may not want to do it.
So yeah.
So you like sweets though?
It depends on the sweet. So like I have to be careful with my sweets.
Okay. Do you have a weakness?
I am lactose intolerant, which sucks.
Oh, so it's going nowhere with you. It's a sweet and savory, the cheese and apple pie. Kind of like.
I feel like it'd be too rich.
Well, I mean, it's definitely pretty rich. But I mean, so is apple pie with ice cream, right? I mean, that's pretty rich too. But no, there's no doubt it's rich, and it's probably more of like right now here probably doesn't play very well. It's too hot. But in the winter, around the holidays, or I don't know, November or whatever, and you're in the north and it's freezing cold, and you got a warm apple pie and some cheese. Well, it's comfort food, man. I mean, it's great. Look, I don't really know, but I think it's a little bit of a, I don't want to say a delicacy, but it's a little bit of fine dining in some areas of the country. Like
I could see.
Yeah, it's not like trashy food. It's well-respected way to serve and eat apple pie. Here we go again with all this stuff.
Is that the weirdest thing that you've had? Or what's the weirdest?
Oh, that I eat?
Yes.
Oh, no. There is one thing I do that usually elicits a response from people. And
lay it on me, because I'm not one that gives weird looks on stuff like that. Because,
what Elvis had, the peanut butter and banana sandwiches, stuff like that, where you're like, oh, really? I guess I would have never thought of that. It's not crazy.
No.
I tried it. It's fine. But my thing is, I grew up this way, was grilled cheese sandwich. My mom used to make homemade elderberry jelly, which is the best. And she would spread elderberry jelly over the top of the grilled cheese sandwich. And that's how I eat them to this day. If I get a grilled cheese
Not
sandwich.
inside, but on the top.
It's on the top. So it's done.
Okay.
It's fried, right? I mean, it's out of the pan. And they just put jelly over the top of it. It's delicious. And again, probably a little bit that fruit cheese, savory, sweet mix.
Yeah.
I love it. So maybe I'm just predisposed to mixing cheese with sweet things. I don't know.
Maybe, because we usually do like butter on top, so that's why it's like you don't want to have like butter and jelly on there. So I never thought about putting anything else other than butter on the top.
But you put the butter on before you put it in the pan, right?
I don't know. My mom would always make it for me.
You spread the butter on
I microwave my grilled cheese sandwiches.
What? Alex. That's not how you do it.
Welcome to the 29-year-old single guy that lives by himself.
That is not the way to do it.
No, it's not, but it's a convenient way.
Okay, all right. If you say so, I'll believe you.
I think with and speaking of cheese, like I remember as a kid, because I never really cared for cheese as much, I would even get like pizza without cheese.
Yes. So my kids, when they were young, were a little bit like that, right? Some of them didn't want the cheese, or very much cheese anyway, on the pizza, which I was like, well, then there's no point in having the pizza. I get a breadstick, right? You dip it in the marinara, because that's all you're getting. But no,
I get it light now because of the lactose intolerant, which is understandable. But like as a kid, yeah, I would like, even when my mom made pizza, I would ask her, hey, can you make a little side for me with none? And she would do that.
Of course you would. It's your mom. She should. She should. That's what moms are for.
They cook you stuff.
They're the greatest. They love you for who you are, and if that means no cheese, then by gum, I'll make yours with no cheese. Moms are the best.
But I mean, I was thinking about this yesterday. I was like, I put pickles on a lot of stuff too. So like, yeah, I've even thought about like on like a hot dog. One time it didn't turn out as good as I thought, but like you chop or like use a knife and cut up pickles and like sprinkle that instead of relish.
Yeah.
And do that. It didn't, maybe it was just, I didn't do it right, but.
Do you remember the dilly dog a couple years ago?
I did not have it.
Oh, it's good.
Was it really good?
It was okay.
I've heard mixed reviews.
No.
No.
It was all right. But it had the pickle around the hot dog, and then the corn dog.
So it was a hot dog, a pickle, a hot dog inside a pickle, or like
it was a hot dog inside a pickle in the corn dog.
So is it like fried pickles just with a hot dog in there?
Yep. I guess that's probably kind of what it is. Fried pickles, by the way, very good.
Oh, okay. I thought you were gonna say it was bad. I was like,
no,
we're gonna have to have a talk. Yeah, they're very good. But you have to make it right.
Well, I don't make fried pickles. I just get them.
There are some places that add too much batter to it. But if you have the batter very flaky, then that really is good.
Yeah, strong. I like it.
Do you miss the ballpark food too, as far as on the road? Or did you even?
I miss the diversity of food, right? Seattle, our hotel is maybe less than a block away from this little Indian food restaurant that has a great lunch buffet. I must eat at that place 5-6 times a summer, and I pine for it all the time. I love it. So there's certain things like that there's a Thai food restaurant in San Francisco I really like. I miss the diversity of food. At the ballpark, very rarely do you venture out to actually eat the ballpark.
Outside, yeah, I can see that.
We're just working and we eat the dining room food. But sometimes, some places, like again, San Francisco, I'll go get a cha-cha bowl out on center field or something. And in Oakland, there is a media dining in Oakland, but nobody really goes. You go to the food trucks outside, and it's just this free-for-all. It's awesome. You never know what trucks are going to be there. It's fun. It's a good time. So I do miss it. I was actually talking to Tom Grieve about that the other day off the air. I was like, I think we're playing Oakland. I said, I miss the food trucks. I want to go get the food trucks, that breakfast burrito at the one place. And he was like, yeah, same here. He's like, that's what I'm missing. He's like, that's about all I'm missing from the road. But occasionally little food places that we just get hung up on. Yeah.
I know when I went to San Francisco a couple of years ago, I was dining with their gluten-free chicken. And so, and then like the healthy lemonade. That was really good. And I think I forgot what it was, like the margarita that they had there. There's this one chicken place that they had that was I think it was, I don't know if it was like, I forgot what ingredients. It was like gluten-free and stuff, but like there's no such thing as like gluten-free margaritas, but there was like some sort of healthy type. But yeah, that stood out. Boston, when I went, I did a lobster. I told you this. I did a lobster roll, and I didn't care for it. Now, this may be my own doing, but I remember I didn't really soak it in much butter. And I wonder
Yeah.
if that was the reason.
I mean, maybe, right? Everybody's got, obviously butter makes everything better, but
I have to ask Emily, the expert,
yeah, she would
on
know.
if
She would know.
if it really is the butter really is the reason that makes it or breaks it.
Yeah. She'll have an opinion, I guarantee you.
I just hope it's a good opinion.
Yeah. That's one of her favorite things, though, is that lobster roll, boy. She
And
loves
then
it.
Cincinnati was okay. Like the ballpark food there was okay. I think they had. I will say this because you went on that road trip. They are very into their pizza. Their free
Yes.
pizza.
Yep. They like their pizza. They love their chili. It must be the chili capital of the world. I don't know if you went down that road at all with the chili in Cincinnati, and they love pork. I mean, the city used to be called Porkopolis because they used to march the pigs down the main street back, obviously more than a few years ago. But I noticed that there's always, in the media dining, there's always a pork option, which is just kind of a funny thing, right? It's like, oh, you want to cut a ham, or you want the pork hot dog, or there's some pork all the time there. They love their pork.
I love their bacon. That's
Yeah.
my go-to for everything.
Yeah. Also makes everything better.
Is it? We're getting close to dinner time, Dave. So, but no, I mean, I think going because we're down to the final stretch. We're down to the final 23 games. I know there hasn't been any, I guess, outlook on what's going to happen these final 23 games. But I mean, when Woody says that the team is getting close, that they're just a few at bats away, a few pitches away. Do you think that they'll maybe hit over that hump? Or I know there's no evidence to see that based on previous games, but at some point there's got to be one that just clicks and momentum strikes.
Yeah, so I guess I would look at it this way, right? The optimism I have that it could click is exactly what you and I talked about, right? So these last, 18 games where they've just not been very good, very competitive. So many of the games are close, and they could have won. There's just one at bat, one swing, oftentimes from tying or winning the game. Well, the other truth during that time is that Joey Gallo has like 2 hits. I think one of them was a bunt hit. So just imagine that Joey gets hot and that he goes on a run in the last 23 games where he hits safely in, 18 of them. He draws in the neighborhood of 25 to 30 walks and hits 9 home runs. Not impossible in those last 23 games. If that happens, all those games that were just hovering right there as attainable might flip. And maybe you then do win 15 of the final 23 or something. And you feel a lot better about the offseason, a lot better about Joey, a lot better about everything. So, I think it's possible. I mean, the fact is, their record's not good. They haven't played well. But if Chu started, if Gallo started, if Andrews figured it out, if Odor got healthy and came back and did something, I mean, those are 4 big names, big guys that you've relied on heavily over the years. Collectively have done close to 0 this year for this team, right? Joey had that one little stretch, but that's a huge, huge cavernous hole that has not been filled. If 1 or 2 of those guys got something going, you could see where things might take off. And if that happens, the rising tide lifts all ships, right? Solak might even get a little better. IKF might get a little better. These guys are already hanging in there and battling as it is, but you could see where the addition of one hot bat right now could just ignite everybody. I mean, there's a lot of frustration left to be taken out on somebody, and hopefully they'll figure out a way to do that here in these last couple of weeks.
They say clean house. I don't think clean house is the answer because I feel like on paper, it's like as far as if you want to make a food analogy, it's like you have ingredients to make a really nice dish, but you just haven't gotten the right combination of those ingredients to make that fine cuisine dish. And you keep trying and trying and trying, and you still haven't figured it out yet. I feel like that's what it is. I feel like they have the ingredients, so they have the personnel. It just, the personnel has not attributed to their capability. And I don't know about you, I don't want to get you in trouble on this, but it feels like also behind the plate has been, as far as umpires go, have been a little, I don't want to say a little, but kind of inconsistent. I don't want to say, and I said this yesterday, like to say that the Rangers haven't gotten any calls behind the plate is not true. They have. I feel like it leans a little bit towards a post, but just in general, I feel like the umpire strike zones have been incredibly inconsistent. Just overall, like zones, strikes that were in the second inning are not strikes in the eighth inning, vice versa.
Yeah, I mean, it happens. I think it happens every year, though, right? I think it's, again,
I think everything is more magnified because of this
I
year.
I think it's all magnified this year because it's all we have, and every little thing counts so much greater. So, pardon me, I think that I think we're in danger sometimes of feeling that it's worse than it is, but it hasn't been great. There's no doubt. There have been times where it's been rough. There was literally a game that the Rangers won. Maybe it was opening day. I can't quite remember. Where I felt like there were 2 or 3 critical strike ball calls that went the Rangers' way in like the last 3 innings to change the game. It was the game.
You're talking about the Tapia pitch on opening day?
That might have been it. Yeah. And I remember thinking to myself, like, wow, we're going to get that kind of good fortune this year. We could, we could do all right. And then since then we've had some just crushing ones. And Joey had a strike 3 the other day that was just absurd. And, it just gut punches at times when you're down too, right? When you're struggling like we are.
The San Diego game, I feel like the walk-off grand slam loss, I felt like there was, in that Grissom at bat, changed.
Yeah.
I mean,
it just feels worse, right?
Right.
It's bigger when you're not doing well. So you just can't weather, any little setback. And that's kind of where this team has been. And that missing ingredient, maybe it's saffron. Typically it is. A little bit of saffron makes everything better. So maybe he's out there. Maybe the Rangers find that guy in the offseason, trade for him, sign him, who knows? And it all clicks. That would be awesome. But, I don't think I'm kind of with you. I don't think cleaning house is necessarily the route to go, because there are some really good things happening, and usually I think you can if you can just find the right piece to bridge one guy to the other, whatever the case, you can do a lot better. But we'll see.
I do think bringing up Eli, bringing up Leote, seeing those two, that combination along with Joey in right field, very good. It becomes a little interesting when Rudy comes back, what you do with Solak and what you do with Scott Heineman, because he's a very capable outfielder too. I know he's getting some work at first base, but that's going to be an arranging combination to go. And when Odor comes back off the injured list, somebody's going to have to be sent to the alternative training site.
Yeah. And
maybe it's Tejeda. I don't know.
Yeah. I don't know. I mean, Yadiel was a casualty yesterday, right? But you've got to, you just kind of have to conduct the business the way you conduct it. And it is a sad, unfortunate truth that the business side of it, right, the contract that Odor has is a factor. It's in the room, right? It's got a seat at the table, that contract. And you have to acknowledge it. You have to deal with it in some fashion. And it can be costly in more ways than one. And that's, again, a crossroads that the Rangers and John Daniels find themselves at, right? It's like, well, what's the value lost by trying to extract value from that contract if we feel like there isn't much value to get from it, right? Or if we know that that value will never add up to what that contract is worth, do we just pass? Easy for us to say.
Right, exactly.
And give somebody else the opportunity. And I don't know. I didn't even know mechanically how they make those types of decisions, you know, how they evaluate that and monetize those things, which is, you know, a big part of what it is. It's tough and it's a challenge. And you know, Elvis is a similar challenge. You know, I think with Elvis, they feel like there's at least a little more consistency year by year, so you know what it is you're getting. Whereas with Rugi, you know, there's a pretty disparate range of behaviors you can get. So I don't know.
I'll say this for Odor, like, I mean, what are you going to do? Just stick him on the bench for the rest of if he's eligible to come back from the injured list?
I mean,
You might as well, if you have that contract, you might as well play him, because who knows? Maybe one little click, he'll figure it out. I know that's, again, as kind of the theme on some of the things that I've brought up, that there's nothing on paper that suggests that, but there's nothing on paper that suggests a lot of stuff that have happened.
Yeah.
So you might as well give it a shot. Yes, I understand from the perspective that you may be, for some young player who you give that opportunity to, they won't have that opportunity. But, you know, that's where in the long run, you don't play Odor every day, but I'd say you still play him. Don't just stick him on the bench, because that's not going to do any. You're getting less than nothing value off that.
Right. Right. And that's the great, you know, that's the great give and take that these guys have to evaluate. It's, I mean, you know, it's not my money. It's not my livelihood with the wins and the losses. So for people like me or you or writers or fans, right, it's easy for us to say, just punt on that contract and let's play this guy. Or, you know, hey, that's $20 million or that's $15 million a year or whatever. We got to see what I know if it was my $15 million, I would be trying everything.
Yeah.
I would ask him, like, hey, put a quarter in your shoe and maybe your mind will be off whatever mechanical thing's bugging you, and you'll be worried about that stupid quarter in your shoe, and you'll just swing naturally and things will take off. I would try anything ridiculous piece of voodoo I could come up with to make it work if it was my money. But, you know, if it was my money, ostensibly I'd have so much more behind me that I wouldn't even care.
Watch The Notebook before the game. Maybe that works.
Right, maybe
I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know. I think The Notebook may be something all Ranger fans are gonna be watching the way this season's been going. Dave, I appreciate the time. It's fun chatting it up. It's kind of weird that we are just a couple weeks, 3 weeks away from the season being over. I feel like it has been very short and very long at the same time, if that makes sense. And I'm sure in 2020, that's probably the thing that makes the most sense.
Yes, it is. It is. But the good news is we got to play. The guys have stayed healthy generally in terms of the COVID. And so it's a good sign. You know, it's a good sign. Maybe next year we're in a much different place and things feel a lot more normal. That's what we're hoping for. And we'll get to hang out a little more at the ballpark and have these conversations more regularly. But I appreciate you having me on. And go Stars. I see the Stars.
Go Stars, yep. Celebrated yesterday's victory against the Colorado Avalanche. Speaking of that, if you want some breakdown as far as the Stars coverage, you can go on DallasSportsFanatic.com/Dallas Stars. Great podcast recapping a fun night of hockey, fun afternoon and night of hockey yesterday. If you want to follow Dave Raymond on Twitter, follow him at Dave Raymond4. If you want to follow me on Twitter because you got nothing else better to do, APlinkTX. For more Rangers coverage, DallasSportsFanatic/Texas-Rangers. You can also, on this podcast, be available on YouTube, Anchor, Google Podcast, and Spotify. Dave, as a Saturday night in Seattle, and then a Sunday afternoon. They should ship you the food too. You should order it from that place and see if they'll ship you the food.
That'd be nice. That'd be nice.
Some places do that now.
Yeah.
I know in Chicago, Portillo's hot dogs, you can get them sent to you.
I'll just enjoy it.
Nick Solak knows what I'm talking about.
Well, Alex, I look at it this way. I'll just enjoy it that much more next year when I get there.
Definitely. And Dave, thank you so much, Rangers Nation. Thank you so much for listening.
Bye-bye. Bye-bye.